Going live. We are live. We are live tonight on a Friday night because we are kicking off the hashtag TQIF lineup. Weekly tradition.
Yeah.
Woo. We start off with the Tex-Trek podcast recorded live, and then we follow that up with Starfleet Boy After Dark on Starfleet Boy's channel.
Wait. I don't know which way the internet.
What are you pointing
way
at?
to the internet.
Right
We should point to you, but
it's true.
Oh, shit. I reversed it. I gotta flip it.
McClunky.
What were y'all talking about earlier? What does that mean?
You don't know what McClunky is?
He does. I've explained it to him like 3 times over the last year.
It means George Lucas doesn't know when to quit.
Yes, that's a good way to do that.
We don't need to talk about the other Star franchise. We got plenty of Star Trek to talk about.
Yeah.
We got some people watching, so we're going to go ahead and get started so we can talk about this week's Discovery episode. So without further ado, I'm Fathery.
I'm Brian.
I'm Starfleet Boy.
This is Dave.
I am the guardian of forever.
Whoa.
Carl?
Oh
This
my
podcast
god, I
is gonna
knew
be
it.
lit.
I knew
And
it.
It's Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 128th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we talk all about Star Trek all the time. Tonight, we are here to talk about Star Trek Discovery, Season 3, Episode 10, Terra Firma Part 2. Teleplay written by Kalinda Vazquez, based on a story by Yeon Kim and Erika Lippoldt and Alan McElroy, and directed by Chloe Domont.
Right on. Big stuff.
Those are 2 of the people. Bowie Kim and Erika Lippoldt are the Section 31 showrunners, as we mentioned last week. So this is kind of like possibly like episode 0 for another future Star Trek show.
Yeah, part 2 of episode 0.
Never enough. So to initiate things, I will kind of summarize the episode real quickly just by reading off the official synopsis for it and then kind of expanding on that with spoilers to recap everything. But the official synopsis reads, Georgiou uncovers the true depths of the plot against her, leading her to a revelation about how deeply her time on the USS Discovery truly changed her. And again, this is all set in the mirror universe, picking up where we left last week at the end of part 1. Just to expand on that synopsis, it turns out that our new friend from last week's episode, Carl, is actually the guardian of forever from City on the Edge of Forever. And he sent Georgiou to relive part of her past in the mirror universe to test her, to see if she has indeed changed before sending her somewhere else where she can exist without time and the universe ripping her displaced molecules apart. And the show gives us a goodbye between her and Michael. And so that's pretty much everything that happens. We'll each give a brief opening statement. I'll just go ahead and go first so I can get done and people can stop listening to me and I can get a break from talking. But I had a fucking blast again, just like last week. This episode was a lot of fun for me. I got the pulp trash murder porn that I don't typically go to Star Trek for, but the Mirror Universe is a nice vehicle to enjoy that stuff with from time to time. So it was able to
Directed
be
by Roberto Rodriguez.
no, not quite, but yeah, I'd like to see him do some Mirror Universe stuff. But no, it still had an emotional core to it, so it worked for me. We don't get a ton of like mother daughter types. I know they're not like actual mother daughter, but that type of dynamic is not something that stories specifically center themselves in very often. A lot of times in these Hollywood stories, they're kind of things written by men that are very like father son, because I think a lot of these male writers are trying to work out their daddy issues or whatever. But yeah, so I thought it was refreshing in that regard. It was a little new and different and unique. And again, they have done the impossible task here. It made me forgive Georgiou, something that in season 1 I thought would have been impossible. So I love the way that they've done that, and I love the way that they did it by telling a story that incorporates so much of the established universe. You have 55 years worth of history, and I love when Star Trek is able to use that in an effective way to tell new stories. So bravo. This might be my favorite Discovery story. I can't say episode because it was a two-parter, but yeah, this might be my favorite, which does kind of concern me, and I'll talk more about that later, I think. But overall, very, very very, very good in my opinion. Brian, what about you?
I've definitely solidified my opinion that part 1 of this is my favorite Mirror Universe story, and I suppose taken together, this is certainly the best one since the 60s. That I can give it. I like the story. I don't really even have a complaint about the story itself. I just feel that it was 1.5 episodes worth of story stretched out into 2. And I can see how that's a problem. What the heck do you do if you've got a 1.5 episode story? So I can't be too harsh with the writers in that sort of situation. But once Georgiou emphatically says, I want to be a good person and I want to try to remake this world into a good place, then we get like 25 minutes of her trying to torture Michael into being a good person, or we get a bunch of people sneaking around and people betraying people and assassination plots, which I know we've never seen that in the Mirror Universe before, but I'm not really into that whole that it's real hard to keep me entertained with that kind of stuff, especially when it's written on this kind of pulpy level. I'll say generous.
You don't want to see a bunch of scumbags being scumbags, Brian?
not when they're this flat and two-dimensional. Yeah. And so I kind of felt like if we could have just got, once she makes her decision, then the only thing she has to learn is, can she fix this Michael? And she's going about it so poorly that as an audience, I have no doubt that this has got zero chance to work. So I kind of feel like, yeah, maybe she's learning that you can't torture somebody into being a good person, but I'm not sure if I'm really getting much out of that journey. But I still think this is probably my favorite Mirror Universe episode since the original one. And the first part is amazingly good. And nothing in the second part can take that away from the first part. So yeah, I guess that's my review.
You reminded me that I don't like any of the Mirror Universe stuff in Star Trek. But
What?
Bump that.
But that being said, I did enjoy this two-parter as much as the original series one. So like, distancing myself from that perspective and going into it, this was a lot of fun. And I agree with Fathery about like the kind of, it fits that little niche of, pulp murder drama or whatever, and stuff like that. But the thing that was, it's just a shame that I love that Georgiou got a redemption arc. I'm very happy about that because I definitely wanted that for Georgiou. And someone in the comments said that the father used to say, "I'm happy with Georgiou being redeemed so long as she's dying in the process."
I did. That's what I said of the Darth.
We need a
coined it
supercut.
Darth Vader.
To be fair,
Kind of all the times you said it.
to be fair, almost everybody in Discovery thinks she died. I mean, and she has been
Right, it's
removed
true.
from the show.
Very
Symbolically, she
good
was
point.
killed off.
Very good point. But yeah, so I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it from that perspective because it was I was in a similar position. I took a similar position on Georgiou. I was like kind of appalled by the existence of her character and the autonomy that she had, and like things like that. So I did feel it in that sense. For my biggest critique with this episode is that I wish the book stuff and all the continuing to solve the burn mystery and all that was in a separate episode, where I think again it was one of those cases where they put too much into this episode, perhaps, like what you said, like maybe it was just it should have been 90 minutes as opposed to 2 different episodes, because it really just kind of, I'm like, okay, what about the Guardians in this episode? Who cares about the burn? Tell me more about the Guardian of Forever. And
I demand fan service.
Yeah,
Service
not
my
just fan
fan.
service, but they gave us a little info about how the Guardian, we learned about either the Guardians evolved or had these other abilities that we never knew about, like how it can change its coordinate, its location, how it can generate a kind of like avatar for itself. Like there's all kinds of new things the Guardian can do. So that's very interesting. I don't see this episode. Some folks, we'll get into this, I'm sure, Father, but some folks are saying it's like a soft pilot for Section 31. I don't see it as that at all. I think it's just a send off.
No,
for
yes,
Georgiou.
it's not a soft pilot, but I said it was an episode 0.
Yeah,
It's
I
kind
guess
of like what the 2-parter was that launched Discovery.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
I was thinking more like the Next Generation episodes, The Wounded or Ensign Row, and how like they did so much of the work to set up Deep Space Nine. But
yeah, I guess that's true. Like, I guess Section 31 will deal with more of these Department of Mysteries type things, like Guardians and who else, and perhaps that's a show where it'll be interesting to see the things that you normally don't see in the galaxy or whatever, along with the subterfuge and spy stuff. So maybe you're right about that.
Something just hit me. Georgiou knows all about the 32nd century, and they threw her back in time, and I had not even considered that until this very instant. Okay, anyway,
I wonder if we'll have room to talk about it further. But anyways, I definitely think as a 2-parter, it's a strong 2-parter, and I enjoyed watching it, and I was really pleased with like the majority of the episode.
Cool.
The Guardian of Forever, I feel like he's going to be the Bosley to the Section 31's Charlie's Angels. He's already got the look, but he's going to be saying it in a much cooler voice when he comes on the intercom.
The Guardian of Forever. Well, I guess it does solve problems, but yeah, just let that woman get hit by a car. So that is kind of a Section 31 way to deal with things. It doesn't say go get her and bring her into the future so she won't be in the past to screw things up. No, just get her hit by a car. That's good enough.
The going out actually with the Guardian of Forever, like when a show wraps on sort of a strong note, it tends to incline me towards a positive view of it overall. And I still, overall, I recognize what they were. Obviously, the purpose these 2 episodes served. They were a prequel of sorts for Section 31. But I think I didn't, when there's only 10 episodes to play around with, I think I wanted more of 32nd century adventure. And that didn't change because of the second episode. But I had acclimated myself to the mirror universe. My cells were attuned to it. So that I was enjoying watching the backstabbery more than I was, I think, in the first one. And it was interesting to watch that Georgiou try and I guess still use mirror universe methodology to achieve her prime universe morality, and not have the best of luck with it, but really give it the old college try. Anyway, I enjoyed watching the machinations and stuff. But it doesn't. For me, on the mirror universe scale, it's gonna rate on the lower half. I don't have like a precise order, but it still felt like a diversion that I think I would have liked to have seen it maybe in a single episode, because we had kind of all guessed the outcome by that first episode, and we kind of knew what the deal was.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll have some more to say as we go along, but a very watchable episode with some great moments in it. I really loved seeing Saru and his guys get to probably give the shock of a lifetime to the Mirror Universe people when they rebelled on them and kicked the ass of a few of them, and he got to beat up evil Dr. Colbert. But yeah, otherwise it was not a particular favorite of mine. Carry on, Fathery.
Well, let me just ask you this, because you said it wasn't one of your favorite Mirror Universe episodes, but you tend to really enjoy those, right? Like when we covered the
I like the Mirror Universe stuff. It's weirder for me when it is like the prime, like when it's all from the Mirror Universe perspective. I'm trying to think. Have we only really seen that on? Even Disco didn't really do that. Only I guess Enterprise did. But Disco has spent considerable time in this particular one, and I think I'm a little like Brian. I don't know that I necessarily want to like hang out in it for too long, watching my heroes be bad people. But it's fun to do. It's cool.
Well, that's interesting, because that was something that I wanted to bring up at some point that I thought of earlier today, that I almost think that I would like Star Trek Discovery more if they had never left the Mirror Universe and it had just been like this nonstop. Because when that's still like that 4-episode arc they did in season 1 where they are in the Mirror Universe, I still like love that more than 90% of the show. And it does kind of concern me that my favorite moments in Discovery is when it's kind of not being Discovery. Like, I like their Mirror Universe episodes the most, and I also like some of the stuff in season 2 with Pike, like the episode New Eden with the church planet people, and the Talos 4 episode, if memory serves. But I mean, those are basically like what Strange New Worlds is going to be. So like when Discovery is like being Discovery, when it's doing like the Klingon War or the Tardigrade or the Red Angel or all this 32nd century stuff with the Burn, that's like when I'm enjoying the show the least. So that is something that I find a little troubling.
Oh, see, that's some of my favorite stuff.
Yeah, I
think you're right to find it troubling, Fathery. It may speak to an overall perspective that you'll have, like when Discovery's said and done, or a season or two more in, where you may be like, oh, I actually like Enterprise more than this, or whatever. Or maybe that's already your case. I can't remember where you rank it.
I think I like Discovery more than Enterprise, because I'm not a huge fan of most of the first 3 seasons of Enterprise, even though I love that 4th season. But
I think Discovery, I think it's interesting how you feel about Discovery, because I do also like all those things. I do agree, though, that the most exciting thing about season 1 was was it 4 Mirror Universe episodes that they did in season 1, right?
4 episodes.
That was the most exciting thing. I mean, going back to that just for a moment, the reveal of Lorca being, that whole cut back and forth with like Burnham realizing it at the same time as like he's about to reveal it to this guy that he was like, whose sister.
Oh yeah, Vaulting Ambitions. Yeah, that was the 3rd episode that they did in the Mirror Universe.
Excellent.
And like that was like the most I was ever on like the edge of my seat, like plugged in to discover like, oh my god, what's gonna happen next? And it's just, I felt like like that Game of Thrones or like Breaking Bad element of like we're like you see the end credits hit and you're like, no, I need to know what happens next.
But for me, season 2 totally trumps that whole thing. Like I think season 2 of Discovery is where I really started to go from liking the show to like enjoying and maybe even loving the show. And season 3, I love it. I think I'm here for Discovery. Yeah, I'm like fully into it because of season 3. Even with the weaknesses of like how they kind of can't. hold my interest on the different plot threads all throughout the series, right? Like it has to be kind of like I have to be reminded of it. So there's some little points that I criticize, but overall I'm like loving everything about season.
I just want to throw a shout out real quick to our listener, Kelpian Freedom Fighter, who posted a quote from. It's just a great screen name. Well done.
Yeah, and I should say I don't dislike these other parts of Discovery. I just like those aren't what I enjoy most in the show so far. So yeah, but when they tend to break away from their status quo is when I have. Brian, I've heard you describe Voyager like that. Like you really like episodes like Year of Hell or Bride of Chaotica, where like it's a little bit more different than the typical status quo.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like scripts reject scripts from Next Gen. So.
But,
this is too much like other things we have done. We'll put it in the file.
Oh my!
Let's go ahead and bust this episode down scene by scene and give it the old deep analysis, and we'll just share our thoughts and feelings on it as I go along. And we'll start off with all that stuff that happened before that new title sequence they gave us. We get the cool upside down shot of the Discovery because we're kind of in like the upside down world, and the camera pans in past those .7 robots that I hate. But yeah, we pick up after last week. Burnham is captured. She's been outed as the traitor. Georgiou is holding her in the brig. The two of them have a standoff confrontation. Burnham is pointing out that Georgiou is weak. That she's trying to rule peacefully. There's no spoils in peace, and Georgiou is telling her, no, you're going to tell me all of your co-conspirators. You're going to help me take down Lorca, or else I'm going to torture you till you're willing to do it. Burnham is thrown into the agony booth, and Georgiou gets Tilly, who is apparently in this universe known for her interrogation skills. Georgiou recruits her to be the, I guess, chief torturer and find out how to go after Lorca, who else is a traitor, and eventually convert Michael back to a loyal servant of the Emperor. And she is watching Burnham being tortured, and we get a really neat inverted. I think like the colors are literally inverted. It's kind of like the mirror flip upside down as right side up image. Opening credit sequence. So what do y'all think about the opening of this episode?
I want to quick mention
something.
Sorry.
Just real quick. That this is sort of not any big picture stuff, but Mary Wiseman, I thought, did some. There's lots of fun scene steely stuff in it, but in particular, it's like when Georgiou said that she was the known as like the most feared interrogator. She does a little kind of aw shucks thing. Yeah. That I thought was adorable. And there was what was the other thing she did in there? Oh,
probably like the frowny face.
Yeah, it was actually like Burnham when she's like torturing her and she's about to leave for the night. Burnham says, "Rotten hell, bitch."
Yeah, that's coming up. That happens later. That happens after this.
It's just it is of a piece with that. I was enjoying watching her particular brand of still being a bit Tilly while being completely evil.
Yeah, I think she is so much more adorable as I really like Tilly? I really like her as Tilly, but like as Tilly, good. Yeah, is definitely my preference.
Is it just the straightened hair, fathery?
I don't know. It's like maybe it's the blue eyeshadow. I don't know what it is.
The hair, the eyeshadow, everything's on fleek. It's a very good look.
She's like out to go party. Anyway,
I didn't like
Starfleet boy.
No, it's fine. I didn't like the opening credits because I wanted them to go full Mirror Universe. Like I wanted the Mirror Universe logo, and I wanted like Mirror Universe artifacts.
Yeah, I thought that was weird. That my guess is they had like only a little bit of money, and so they couldn't really change anything all that drastic. That like reshape programming in a new shape or something was beyond their budget. So they basically just flipped the colors and flipped everything upside down and ran the program again.
I think if they had gone with evil opening titles, though, it would have felt so tonally out of place with this episode. Whereas with Enterprise, when they did it,
Well,
like with Enterprise, it was like a story about like evil assholes being evil, and like that's not the story that they're telling here. So,
yeah.
and also the fact that the show almost didn't get released this year because they had to compose. They were not compose, but
that's fair. I
record the
rescind.
score. They had to like remote record the score and then mix it. So I don't think they probably wanted to like go and like come up with like a new like mirror universe.
Yeah,
theme.
well, let me clarify.
I rescind my disdain.
Let me clarify. All I wanted was those little mirror spear-shaped Starfleet insignia in the transporter room,
Right
and
here,
really,
and
maybe get rid of those robots.
Yeah.
And that was about it. The rest of it I actually liked. Blue color, flipped upside down. Yay, yay, yay. It wasn't until we saw that.
The robots. I want to get the robots out of the entire franchise.
I don't know about the franchise. I'm not entirely sure why they're in the credits. That's for sure. But when it's that emblem showing up, when we're clearly supposed to be in a mirror universe with the mirror universe emblem, because the phasers and everything actually look the same.
Yeah, it's true. That's true.
So yeah, a quibble, not a huge quibble, but
I still rescind my disdain for 20 because of 2020. It's a really valid reason to not have done that.
Yeah, and just putting that the traditional music with such a kind of odd, dark opening, I think creates a nice juxtaposition. While we were talking about acting, I do want to say that Michael is given something that is basically a cartoon to play, and she does her best to knock it out of the park.
Sonequa
Martin Green. She does a really good job of trying to make this work better than I would have thought anybody could do, honestly. So my hat is off to her for portraying a wide range of emotions and timings and viciousness and evilness and callousness, and stretching that as far as it could go with the story and script she was given.
These are great screen grabs, Fathery.
Yeah,
they really. It's almost like Brian had a script and was reading over. It was like
we can thank the director, Chloe Domont, right?
Yes,
Isn't that the name I said earlier.
Yeah,
I think this is her first Star Trek episode. Yeah, we'll move on then. Past the teaser and the opening title sequence, we then get the Tilly torture montage, I guess we can call it. But yeah, this is where we get like that rotten hell bitch, and then Tilly's frowny face, and yeah, they're torturing poor Burnham around the clock. They have, I guess, shifts, because then like all of a sudden like Owo is in there, like manning the torture console. Burnham's refusing to eat, so they have Culber force feeding her. There's clearly no escape. Burnham does have her loyalist Detmer, who we saw serve under Mirror Burnham back in season 1. But yeah, Detmer seems loyal to Burnham. Of course, like the Emperor is watching everything, and she eventually like comes to Burnham's side, kind of concerned for her, and she's saying things like, "I wish there was another language you could understand, but here where strength is power and terror is love, there's no other way to reach you." And she's talking about when you were a little kid, you would have like these night terrors, and tells this anecdote about like going out to like a field of fireflies where I guess little kid Burnham in the mirror universe would calm down. But eventually Burnham does give in. She starts to eat on her own, and she comes around to Georgiou and asks for forgiveness. And Georgiou accepts her back into the fold. She says, "Okay, well, you're going to serve me. You're going to go kill everyone who was a co-conspirator. Detmer can help you. And you are going to help me take down Lorca." Burnham comes like a little kid who like is in trouble with their parent here. But yeah, so what do y'all think about what's going on here, and kind of like the conversion of Michael? Does that make sense to y'all? I kind of struggled with it at first, but I came around to it on repeat viewing.
I'll go first and just say that like it is really dark when you think about how she breaks her to recondition her to go after to like do her bidding. So it's not very like redemption-y on the surface,
No.
right?
But I don't think that Georgiou. I don't think Georgiou is actually like that concerned about like redeeming her. I think at this point she's just like, by my force of will, I'm going to force people to do what I want them to do. I'm going to force the situation to be kind of like that stubbornness, pigheadedness, and she's not seeing like, no, that's actually an impossible task. You're not going to be able to force this person to be good if they don't want to. You're not going to be able to force the.
Right. She's had an experience of I don't know how many months or years in the future, or like in the Prime universe rather.
Oh, she said
can't-
3 months that she was there for, right? Yeah.
Is it 3 months?
Well,
That's
no,
a relatively.
No,
fast
we're
conversion.
talking about her time in
sorry.
the Prime
Oh,
universe.
In the
Yeah,
Prime
I meant
universe.
like all
Okay,
her
gotcha.
adventures in season 2 and
Two.
Yeah, it's basically all of season 2.
Yeah. But I don't know how long that was meant to be chronologically. Like, has she actually only been in the Prime universe, I don't know, half a year?
Yeah, probably less than a year.
Yeah, okay. I wondered, like, the one time that she seemed to, like, try and throw a little empathy was when Burnham was unconscious or seemingly unconscious when she talked about the fireflies and stuff, and did seem to indicate that at least as a kid that, like, that there is something to, like, some empathetic or peaceful quality to people in the mirror universe, or could be if they weren't
Right.
immediately conditioned and basically had it beaten out of them to that would be weak, to try and
you can only be nice to somebody if they're asleep. That's the rule.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah, you can't like show that openly.
which is actually what
Yeah,
she is
it's
literally Georgiou is doing in the current
In that
scene as well.
scene, yeah.
Yeah,
There's
as well as the
there's a few
sleepwalking.
times- yeah, there's a few times where, like, no pun intended, but like Georgiou's shields are down, and she does convey a little bit of like genuine positive emotions or compassion or stuff like that.
Well, and
and
what she does for Saru later, yeah.
yeah, but whenever Burnham gets like a peek of that, she always like calls her out. She's like, "Aha, you're weak. You're showing your weakness." But
That's true. That is true.
this Firefly story kind of seemed like a real, like, I don't know, just like kind of contrivance. I almost did though, like, try to force it into the Gorn eggs and be like, oh well, it's kind of like that CGI story that Michael's dad told her growing up about like the little girl in the ancient days who had like the
Nice
light that like lit
connection.
the stars. But I was like, that's too much of a stretch. I'm not
That
gonna count
itself
that
is
as a
contrived.
It's, no, but it is
Yeah.
the mirror version. Father, I think that's fair. I think that's a mirror version of that. It's kind
Oh,
of
you think that
like-
was intentional on their part?
I don't know, but I mean, it's clever that you put it together.
Yeah, that's that could actually be a thing.
I
And
mean,
I get
I
same as. Well, go ahead, Brian.
I kind of like the scene because I like fireflies, and
Me too.
That's a soft spot in my heart. So the idea that that's a soft spot in their heart resonated a little bit. But I echo Father E's feeling that anytime you have to bring sleepwalking into something, you feel like you're moving into Scooby-Doo land. But
People sleepwalk. That's a real thing. I think whatever the case, we have to also compliment Sonequa Martin Green's acting again. As she kind of went from being feral to doing this very broken person, and just seeming like drained of all life. And some of that was direction, but also her visual acting in all these scenes I thought was pretty excellent.
I appreciated that the bread was not just Wonder Bread; that it looked a little artisanal, perhaps.
it had horns. Look, it's like the silhouette of Daredevil or something.
It might be sourdough. I don't know.
Even the bread is evil.
Yes.
I'm not a big bread eater, but if I do eat bread, I prefer wheat bread over white bread. That's just me.
I will say I liked Georgiou's monologue that she has in this little sequence where she's kind of like giving a log entry or something practically, and I kind of thought, okay, that's really strong, but that feels like that's kind of the end of the episode. She says, yeah, I want to fix this universe. It's broken. I need to make it better. That's it. She's learned her lesson. We're done. The episode's over. But she's doing that right after the opening credits.
Listen, the Guardian of Forever wants to see some blood.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's watching this too.
Honestly,
he's
it might
big
have
TV flipping channels, like
it
in the
might
city
have
on the
just
edge of forever.
it might have just played out until she died. That might have been the end point, and it was just that's how long it took her to get herself killed.
It is like, we talked about this in the previous episode. We wondered, I think, whether she would have to have a symbolic death, and that was my guess, and that part did pretty much come true.
Yeah.
She had a symbolic death and a symbolic murder. Well, I don't know how symbolic. She recorded all that time, so we do presume that this all happened.
Apparently,
Yeah, we're guessing since they made such an emphasis. I'm guessing, sorry, that since they made such an emphasis on the temporal incursion and calling it that is exactly what this is. It's another temporal incursion, and it's a separate, but it's a separate timeline that began once Georgiou entered it. So nothing gets changed in the previously known events. And so look at this as like a mirror Kelvin, if you will.
Well, that is one of my I had three complaints kind of about this episode, and that was one of them, is that I wish that they would have been like a little bit cleaner with the explanation of the time travel and what exactly was it, and defined those things. So, but
I mean, we have the model of the other two Guardian episodes, so we do know how Guardian time travel works in a way that we don't often know about time travel shenanigans in Star Trek. So it looks like, I do wonder what happened when Lorca and Prime Disco showed up in this universe. Now that the Emperor Georgiou is dead, was Lorca? I mean, clearly things worked out reasonably similarly for Discovery because they were able to make it back to the Prime timeline. But do we?
You also have Carl refers to it as a mirror universe, as in like there's more than one now, and stuff like that. I mean,
yeah, it's split something off here, so I suppose there's more than one. But and so well, I guess we'll get to that later. But I also wanted to point out before we move on, I don't think Lorca, it said he actually, I don't think he is coming. I loved how right after the credits, they just have this meta line telling the audience, stop waiting for Lorca. He's not in this episode. It was like very nice.
Yeah.
What was the deal right after the credits?
What's her name? The pilot.
Detmer
comes up and says, I don't think he talks about Lorca and says, we haven't heard anything from Lorca. I don't think he is coming, which to me felt like a giant shout out to the audience. Lorca's not in this episode. Stop waiting for that shoe to drop.
For a minute, I thought you meant the closing credits, and I was like, oh, wait, there was an opening.
You're talking the opening. Yeah, right in the opening credits.
I remember.
Giving the audience this little heads up to stop waiting for that. So nicely done there.
Well, I guess we'll move along. Detmer and Burnham go on their murder crusade under the Emperor's orders. They go after Commander Landry. They ambush her in the corridors, have a little bit of a phaser battle with her, but Burnham gets the better of her. And the two of them report back to the Emperor. They have the badges of everyone they've killed, so they go to her and her. I guess they're in Captain Killy's ready room, where they throw all of the badges out on the table. And they have Landry, they have Bryce, they have all the other people, and Georgiou's like, "Oh, Burnham, you forgetting anything?" And then she's like, "Oh yeah," and stabs Detmer in the gut, just betrays her, kills Detmer. So all the other co-conspirators are dead. Burnham's the only one, and Georgiou has this dinner scene with her, which was really interesting to me. They're kind of veiled sparring jabs that they take at each other, where Burnham's pointing out, "Oh, you don't serve kelpin anymore," and Georgiou plays it off as like, "Yeah, it's actually like not that good. It's high in cholesterol and stringy, but oh, do you still love Lorca?" But Burnham's like, "He left me for dead," and Georgiou's like, "That's not a no." So that type of like antagonism between one another. We Brian and Dave, the three of us just read or reread like the Dune novel recently, and this kind of made me think of like some of those conversations in Dune, where it's always like people have like wheels within wheels and plans within plans in their heads and stuff. And it's
Right.
always like this type of chess game type of stuff. And it felt a little bit like that, but
That's an interesting point. I like that.
yeah. So what do y'all think about the stuff though with Detmer and Burnham, and then kind of the way that things are repositioned, where okay, now we're going after Lorca, but it's kind of telling the audience here that like Burnham might not be on the Emperor's side. There's a little bit of like dramatic tension here. Like, is she going to betray her, and when is it coming? So,
Well, I have to think that we all kind of expected that to happen, and like throughout as we're discussing this episode, I find I guess I don't have a lot to say about it other than I enjoyed the actors relishing the sequences. I liked this moment here and there, but I wasn't necessarily finding anything in these scenes to be kind of novel and striking. I don't know. What about y'all?
I mean, it was kind of we get to see evil Michael be evil, and I guess if that's something you enjoy watching, then yay. But I was kind of there came a point where her great acting couldn't hold my interest much. So and like you said, I didn't feel a lot of dramatic tension about whether she was going to betray Georgiou because I just kind of figured that's coming. That's inevitable. So.
I did think like the action sequences, gave the episode they punctuated it with some energy, and they were well filmed action sequences. I often recommend the Ready Room this week, especially for the Michelle Yeoh interview. But they talk about the guy who's their action choreographer too is also interviewed, and he talks more notably about the final battle, but. Stuff like this is always kind of well done. The collecting the badges sequences.
And for whatever reason, I was going to kick out of Landry dying. So I like when the tardigrade killed her.
I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, I liked when the tardigrade killed her because she was such just a terrible, mean person in those first few Discovery episodes. I didn't like her. I liked it when she saw the Discovery shooting the torpedoes at the Charon and blowing her up at the end of season 1 of the Mirror Universe, and then like her death here.
Yeah, she's
weird fetish.
It'd be really fun if that's
don't kink shame.
It'd be really fun if in every temporal incursion, Landry just dies like a different way.
Deep Space Nine has a recurring thing where every time they do a Mirror Universe episode, they killed one of the Ferengi.
Oh,
yeah,
that sounds kind of mildly racist, or not mildly racist.
Yeah. It is definitely a thing. It was deliberate, and they do. Yeah, one of the Mirror Ferengi die every episode.
I was still wondering at this point, like, what is this episode doing? Because they changed all the expected events so dramatically, and I was still trying to figure out how they were going to tie it in. And I was still, even though I know they subconsciously, Lorca's not going to show up, I still was holding out hope that we would get a Lorca return. But I still like the way it turned out. But that's what I was thinking during these scenes. I definitely was, like, kind of...
Yeah, I sort of was expecting it too, and it was a little bit of a letdown. I don't know that what it would have necessarily added other than hey, right. Yeah. I know that guy.
Well,
hey, Father,
that was my take on it.
Yeah, it made sense to kind of not do it, but...
Because they have this character, Dugan, who kind of becomes kind of a Lorca proxy, and they go after him instead, and it's a very small, insignificant part that I think would have been wasted on Lorca. It was better to hold off on that. We'll get more Lorca at some point. I'm pretty confident. Like Oscar Isaacs is game. There's going to be 30 different Star Trek shows on the air before long. Someone's going to have a good Lorca story.
Can you pull up the three comments back from Stress Free K talking about the tension of the sequences here? Just somebody who was plugged in, getting a little bit more out of this scene. Stress Free K posted, the tension of these scenes came from Georgiou, the links to which she kept trying to reach Michael. It was heartbreaking.
It was heartbreaking to torture her. It was heartbreaking.
Well,
do you remember Baron Munchausen? Did you guys ever see Baron Munchausen?
Yeah, it's been a while.
A long time ago.
The torture.
No, I have not.
Okay. That's all I gotta say.
But Brian, she's doing that as like a only alternative of like executing her.
I will say that when we saw her like watching it, she wasn't like, yes, she was not liking it, but she wasn't like crying her eyes
she's
out.
not having a good time watching that.
Yeah.
What's that?
Like she's not like what she would actually want is Michael to be like, you know what, Mom, I'm sorry. Let me make it up to you. And like Burnham won't do that because she's an evil asshole. Because everyone in this universe is an evil asshole. So like she's, well, what else am I gonna do? Like I'm supposed to kill her right now. I don't want to kill her. Like God damn it, like just be nice, just be good, just fall in line, just apologize.
Yeah.
So it's like
There's a
that situation.
There's a bizarro sort of Arthurian thing going on for me in this episode, and I'll talk about that more later in the climax to the thing. But I enjoyed that Michael is actually like Mordred and a darker Mordred, and like Georgiou's like a dark Arthur, you know. And this is the kind of like thing that like the same tension for me.
Oh, that's an interesting point. I always like I like a little Arthurian legend in the.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Well, we get some of that imagery later towards the end, but we also have Aaron Harvey is in the audience watching, and he says she literally tried to break her heart.
That's fair.
Who literally tried to break his heart?
I think Burnham would have liked to have literally tried to break her heart.
Yeah.
Like literally, as in like take someone's heart and like physically break it, like stab them in the heart.
She wants to do that for sure.
Yeah.
Well, moving on, we get this moment between Georgiou and Saru, where she does get to like open up a little bit and say, you know, things like, you know, I just want Burnham to come over to my side, and she says, Saru, I know you're her slave, but I want to keep you around. But he's like, oh, I actually can't. I'm getting Vahari. I'm gonna die. So Georgiou shows some compassion here, and she's like, no, you're not gonna die. Just go lock yourself up in a room. It'll pass. You can survive. I knew a Kelpian who did this, and his whole world is kind of shattered. He's like, what? You mean like my family didn't have to die? We can survive? What are you telling me? And she's like, yes, you can do it. I even saw a Kelpian who was a captain of a starship, and his name was Saru. And she's clearly like having like fond memories of, you know, this face. And it turns out she actually kind of liked Saru. And so he's like, oh, you're not Terran. I don't know who you are or where you're from, but they are going to kill the shit out of you if they figure this out. You need to go back to where you are. She's like, no, I'm on this mission. I gotta get Dugan. They track him down to Ryza. They capture his ship. They bring him on board, and you can see if you watch this again, you can see Burnham is positioning herself to betray Georgiou here, where she's like, oh, we better bring the honor guard down to the brig and get Dr. Culber in there. You know, we don't want him to die before we get information from him. So she's setting herself up to betray Georgiou. She kills Dugan, so you're not going to find Lorca. She cuts off that information source at the head. You know, phaser on Georgiou. We have Hilton and Reese bust into the brig. We have Culber, and everyone is on Burnham's side. But here comes Tilly to the rescue, I guess, to help the Emperor, and we get like this big action-y fight. Saru and the other Kelpian, we have like some action Kelpians where he shoots Dr. Culber, grabs his ass up, throws him up into the ceiling, just like kills the shit out of him.
Look at that. That's great.
Yeah, he did like a feral roar.
Yeah, like a man roar, like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine or something. But
why didn't we have hand-to-hand
combat?
Yeah, I was waiting for the spiky things and we didn't get it.
We didn't get them. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they would have been fresh. He just did the Valhari.
Yeah.
And another comment from Aaron, Ryza, which does not have rings in the Prime universe. Yes, but it has 2 moons. So maybe in the mirror universe, someone blew up those moons, and now there's rings.
And they turned it one of the moons. That's great. Also, I liked your joke, Geek Filter. I thought it was funny.
I can actually see the people, some emperor of the mirror universe saying, "I love this vacation planet, but it needs rings. That would make it prettier. Destroy that moon up there. Make it into a ring."
That was Hoshi. That was Emperor Hoshi. That's who did that.
Oh yeah, Hoshi did it. Or maybe if you wanted it to not be a pleasure planet anymore, that's one way to. Well, this will probably like cause some tidal forces that'll devastate the planet.
I thought the planet was naturally a shithole anyway, right? So
they have to like
control
control the weather and stuff. But
now Duggan is not a character who we've seen before in Discovery. I kept thinking this is supposed to be somebody I'm supposed to recognize either from the previous mirror outing or from the normal universe, and I wasn't recognizing him. But he's just
I completely forgot he existed until
that's how they traditionally use the mirror universe. Is they would take a known character.
Yeah.
Here they didn't. So what I would have suggested is that they saved Landry for this moment. And that way it would have been like a character that we knew who already had loyalty to Lorca. Like the stuff in part 1 where someone gets mad at the Kelpian for spilling food on them. That could have been Reese, Bryce, Arium, Nilsson. That could have been anybody. It didn't need to be Landry. Whereas here would have been a good role for her.
Yeah. And even if she has less screen time, this is, I think, a more meaningful thing to chew on for an actor as well.
Especially
to have
Rekha Sharma,
conversation is much better than anything else she got to do.
Rekha Sharma is a bit of a royalty because of Battlestar Galactica, so it would have been nice to give her a bigger role. I think
a bigger role, but even the confrontation between Dugan and Burnham, where there's a little bit of antagonism. Where he's like, "Oh, Emperor, you can't trust this one." Like, I think there would have been more sparks there between Landry and Georgiou because we would know, like, oh yeah, like they're both into Lorca, so they're gonna be like a little, have like a little bit like that jealousy thing going on between the two of them.
Yeah,
yeah. What do you think of the action though? I thought this stuff was really cool. I thought like the hand-to-hand combat was cool. I like the idea of like Georgiou being like, I don't want to fight you, and just like, please don't do this, and just everything she throws at Burnham. Burnham's just like, oh, you said please? You're so weak. You disgust me. And
I guess it just felt like more standard mirror universe shenanigans where somebody tries to be good and everyone else tries to be evil, and there's backstabbing, and I wasn't sure what I was supposed to be getting out of this. So.
Of the scenes you showed, Fathery, my favorite scene in this and in some ways in the episode was in fact Michelle or Georgiou talking to Saru and revealing what it's like for Kelpians in her timeline and telling him something meaningful that he can survive and sort of even thrive. I kind of needed to see sort of a demonstrative act of her change, and that was the biggest I saw. They didn't choose to kind of like reward on it as much as her time with Burnham, but I thought for me it was the most interesting.
Well, yeah, and there's that was kind of a selfless thing to do. Like, there's no reward to her. Like her whole like mission to like get Michael back on her side. That's kind of like, yeah, because like I want my daughter. I want to have my daughter. It's kind of more about like something that she wants. Where I was helping Saru or Mirror Saru or this unnamed Kelpian slave who probably doesn't have a name, but that was just a pure act of kindness. Which actually, at the end, according to Carl, that was a big part of what ends up saving her soul. And I kind of like the moral of the story there. I kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
The suggestion of like doing the right thing is its own reward. And
you're saying that Mirror Saru was the Tiny Tim of this morality play?
Yeah, 100%. She's the Scrooge, and this is all a big Star Trek Christmas Carol. That's why they were out in the snow.
It's true. It was a Christmas Carol. This is the scene I was saying that for me visually harkened to Excalibur.
It's like Excalibur, where they stab each other. It's the parent and the child stabbing each other to death. Spoilers for Excalibur.
For Excalibur, but I do like that she said sorry. I'm sorry. That was also pretty, like good, like to show that like she really and she really did. I also like that, Burnham thought she had everything, like she had the Emperor, and the Emperor's like, well, actually I already predicted this as well, and here's my posse already hiding and ready to attack as well. So I did like that the Emperor ultimately was the most clever in the episode as well,
and she's so confident. Like when all these guns are pulled out on her, she doesn't like get nervous or anything. Yeah. She's like, yeah, I'm like a kung fu badass. Like I can still fight all of y'all. I'm just upset that like I'm gonna have to do that, Michael. Like I didn't want to do that.
Father, you were saying that she didn't have any ulterior motive for helping Saru, but he did just form a death squad that helped her out in the end.
Yeah, but I don't think she was expecting that,
Probably not. I think that was more just a bit of visual excitement there, but she did make use of it.
Yeah, when she dies in his arms after she goes through like the pain of like watching like her dead daughter who she had killed again, this time by her own hand, and just like the failure of her mission of trying to reforge a relationship with her, and she dies in the arms of Saru. And I guess if y'all don't have anything else to say about like the mirror universe, we'll go ahead and cross over back to the Prime universe.
I do want to just quick mention that Doug Jones, like a lot of the other actors, did some fine work there, and his especially his bafflement, I thought, at like just his utter inability to read why Georgiou was being kind to him and all of this stuff, and also his like balancing any gratefulness he might have with the terror at like what jeopardy it put them in and put her in. Was fascinating to watch, and I think he really conveyed all of that.
Yeah, the acting all around was great.
Yeah. Real quick, Aaron asked, "Did we know Saru had that kind of superpower?" Yes, in CV blah 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 Parabellum, he crushes the phasers,
the communicators.
Like it's nothing. Yeah, the communicators rather. Yeah, he crushes them like it's nothing.
Which I kind of don't
and
like.
He runs super fast too.
I don't like Kelpians having like super strength because it seems like Vulcans, Romulans, Klingons, everything is like stronger than humans. And I kind of thought, like the original concept for the Kelpians, they're a prey species. So like, yeah, like he should be able to run fast. He should be like, like always kind of defensive and kind of like ready to react to an attack by like running away or something like that, but not like a strong aggro type of alien.
I mean, I did find that they were once it was flipped around, and so it may be that they've had that ability in them, just that they don't exercise it and test it and strengthen it.
Yeah, with the retcon like the Bayul.
Yeah.
I think Klingons are actually supposed to be about the same as humans in terms of strength, Fathery.
Who?
Klingons, they're supposed to be not. They're like really strong humans, but not.
In Deep Space Nine, they say that Worf is strong and as fast as the Vulcans.
Oh,
no one else
okay. I didn't realize that. That's interesting. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so we have Georgiou die in Saru's arms, and she says, "Oh, you passed through," and he's like, "Yeah, I passed through." Bahar's like, pass through, like pass through the door, and you're back on Dana's 5 type of transition. But yeah, so they're here with Carl, and he kind of explains, that she was sent back to the Terran universe. It was there's still like her dead body in a mirror universe, so unsure on that. I wish the timey-wimey stuff was a little bit more clear cut, but yeah, she was somewhere for 3 months. And she's still getting like that face distortion, like whatever her molecule displacement from being in the wrong universe, wrong time. So that's when Burnham was like, "Okay, cut the shit. Like, who are you for real?" We get like that cool fan servicey moment. They use like the 1967 audio. "I am the guardian of forever." The visual spectacle of the door exploding and then reforming into the stone donut from City on the Edge of Forever.
Yes. As my players in the role playing game said, the big talking donut.
Yeah, but yeah, it was cool to see.
It's got that weird, cool asymmetrical vibe to it. Like there's actually, even though it seems like a simple design, it is iconic.
Yeah.
Yes.
What was I going to say? Do we ever? Were you finished, Father, with your recap?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you all to like, kind of talk about like the Guardian and the stuff we get here on Dana's 5.
I have a question. Is like I wasn't sure if this was really revealed or to be inferred or what, but do we know why the Guardian did what he did?
You mean like sent Georgiou, or just like did all that?
Well,
yeah.
I mean, like
I gathered he says something about weighing her so that he could decide where to send her and what circumstance. Like he was basically
is that a thing he does?
apparently he does now because
what does the Guardian do?
Yeah, I think the. Well,
he's been traumatized by the temporal wars because he was used apparently for nefarious purposes, and he feels guilt about that, which I thought that was interesting too. You know, I should say it feels, or they, you know, I don't know what the Guardian he's manifesting as what looks like a he. But anyways, that's what I found that was compelling, is that this is now a Guardian, a post-war. It's like a post-war
PTSD Guardian.
A PTSD Guardian. Really, actually, that's true. That's
the
really
Guardian
true.
of Forever has a cool name, but if you think about it, like how we saw it in City on the Edge of Forever and how we saw it in Yesteryear, it doesn't really guard anything. It just kind of sits there, and it's like, like people just like pass through and go back in time. You know, you can go study ancient Orions, or you can go help your.
It does come off as more, it certainly comes off as more of a useful tool that has a safety system. Like, it's the time travel portal that also guards forever as an added bonus, is what it feels like in those first two episodes. This is the first one where we see it actively trying to guard forever, in that there is this temporal anomaly in the form of Georgiou, and the Guardian is like, I'm going to fix this temporal anomaly, but I need to figure out the best way to fix it that respects her as a person effectively,
and guards forever, and guards forever. Ultimately, I think is what it is. I think he sent her to the right time, and I forget the exact line, but there's an implication like that the right time also where you won't mess with things, because like
it's quite the opposite. Mess things up. He doesn't want her to mess things up, so he needs to figure out who she is so that she can but he actually says, you're going to change things, you're going to go back and save lives, you are going to change history now that I've figured out where you're going to go.
Guardian is picking sides now.
Yeah.
Well, I was wondering, with David Cronenberg, an episode or two back, when they revealed what was going on with Georgiou, mentioned this somebody else who came over from like the Kelvin verse and was kind of being torn apart by the time bendings or the universe bending stuff. Did the Guardian help him out too? Or
no, and they explained that. They explained that, Dave. And I wanted to ask you about this, because one of your complaints last week was that their computer, it just like cryptically tells them, go to Dana's 5 and there's a 5% chance that she'll live. And that, that bothered you because it was so like, that doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't it give them more information if it had anything to give at all? But here they established that no one knows where the Guardian is. He is in hiding after the temporal war. The only reason why the Discovery computer that we know is becoming the sentient being Zora was able to tell them this is because it had the information from the sphere that had lived for 100,000 years, that would have known the Guardian back way back when, and now with access to this new Starfleet database, all the new 30-second information, 32nd century information, somehow it was able to figure out like, oh, he's clearly over here at this other planet now, because I know what to look for. I remember him from way back before.
But the sphere didn't want to blab it to everybody.
And they explained that too, because Georgiou couldn't know what was going on. The Carl says you couldn't know the answer before being asked the question. You couldn't know that you were being weighed.
About that a little last episode, the notion, you can't.
That was Brian's theory, yeah. So Brian, you were right.
They're about to be tested.
Right. So that sphere must have like really known the Guardian, and Zora must be like really smart to have like planned this out so well. But then again, she did say it was only 5% chance going to work. So
yeah,
it's slim. Yeah,
I know a guy. He might be able to help you. I'm gonna take you to the guy, and maybe the guy will choose to help you, but maybe the guy will not.
and maybe that 5% chance was also an exaggeration. Maybe it's like they need
never
they need
tell
to
me the
odds
odds
against them. Yeah, like something like that maybe.
Yeah.
But Dave, I was gonna ask you, because I mean, still like that whole line, that justification. Well, you can't know the answer until you've been asked the question or whatever. Like that is still a little like wishy-washy, kind of like, well, it's just like to have like a convenient reveal. But I accept it, but I don't know if it would conquer your criticism from last week. So I genuinely was curious and wanted to ask you, like how do you feel about it now?
I don't like it.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's you know what? I have. Well, let me ask you. There's sort of a follow-up question. Do y'all think that the Guardian is going to play much role, if any, in the Section 31 show? because
don't.
like they've made such a clear point that you can't have
No.
people jumping around too much at a time, and so I don't expect them to kind of use that as a tool in their kit.
Yeah, well, Kirk hasn't discovered it yet in the time of, say, Strange New Worlds, which we're assuming is when the Section 31 story series is also going to take place. So it would definitely be a very complicated continuity issue to have Section 31 know about the Guardian, but Starfleet
And
doesn't.
we're
But
safe.
there's no Section 31 agents on the planet. But
We're also safe because Georgiou doesn't know the original location of the Guardian. So
Yeah.
you know,
That's
true.
it's tucked away.
I would have to imagine it would be tempting for the writers to. I mean, you know, if say you wanted to do a Star Trek show that jumped around between the eras, which wasn't that that was like one of the Discovery possibilities.
Yeah, I really like that. I like that idea when it was.
I mean,
floated
they
around.
just introduced the perfect facilitator to it and suggested that he wants to perhaps at times take a more active role in galactic society.
Yeah.
So it'd be kind of weird to do that and then do nothing with him. But at the same time, they've also set it up so that I don't think they kind of were like, they made out that time travel is a no-no. So
yeah.
Someone in stress-free cases, I think Disco using these callbacks very sparingly, like Talos 4 to save Spock. You know, I didn't realize that, but I do like having these that's an iconic TOS reference as well, and I like the Guardian feels that like it was handled in that way too. And I think the Guardian even better, to be honest. Like I had some problems with the Telosians. Like I kind of wanted them to be more true to the original look. I didn't want it to be as you
don't know what they really look like. They're projecting images into your brain.
Their big heads could look completely different. There could be a slightly different big head.
That's true, and it depends who's through Burnham's eyes they look like that. It's true.
Yeah.
But anyways, but I did enjoy this Guardian callback or also a revisit of the character, right? Because essentially, like, we're revisiting this character and seeing how it's changed or evolved or what it can do for further visiting that story. So I really enjoyed that, and it's fitting. I like that even in the 32nd century we can get some TOS references on Disco.
Yeah,
and it kind of reminded me of how Doctor Who will bring back like a lot of classic Doctor Who stuff, but they kind of reframe it into something that's like a little bit more, I guess, modern in how it comes off. Like here we're like having like
Timothy
this actual
Dalton
character, Carl,
Guardian of Forever. Imagine if Timothy Dalton had played Carl instead, like he did Rassilon.
They'd have to make him a different. He couldn't be like this, like I don't know, like 1950s or 40s or 60s, whatever he's supposed to be from type American dude.
The bowler and the outfit with the bowler and everything suggests perhaps an Edwardian or a little closer to World War.
I was guessing he was supposed to come from the approximately the same time period as the first Guardian story took place.
No,
yeah,
but I mean
so
the way he's like a Edith Keeler, like that fits.
1930s, yeah.
That style of dress is it's a long period where people kind of dress that way. So
and he's old enough he could be dressing a little old school and still look fine in probable in 1930. I will say I love the Guardian of Forever. I've got a little miniature of it up on my shelf right there. So just bringing it back and tying it into the mythos about what happened to it during the Time War, so that it actually has a little its own little story to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed just as a pure piece of fan service, and I was pleased to see that everything they did with it, none of it contradicted what I'd done with the Guardian in my role playing game. So yay! Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, well, it's what our friend Larry Nemechek often talks about, is using the canon, like using the things that have already been established.
Yes.
So I loved this concept that was in the original series and the animated series, married to something that was mentioned in Enterprise with the temporal wars, and then used here in Discovery to tie into a future show that. Aaron in the chat also pointed out we don't know for sure that the Section 31 show is happening. It hasn't gotten like the official order from CBS All Access.
I thought that was like
they put together a writers' room, and they were paying people money to work on the show. So I'm pretty confident that
I don't think they would have given them said,
it.
here, write 2 episodes of write episode 0 of your show inside our show.
I believe the sphere data would probably give that show an 88% chance of happening.
But even if it doesn't happen there, we will see Georgiou again at some point.
They've really done a good job, I think, in for me, and I think for a lot of people, the redemption of Georgiou is a success. So I think that I would be I'm more interested now than I ever was for a Section 31 TV series, now that I like Georgiou.
Right. Well, they got it to a place they needed to, and that they were not at the previous season.
Yeah.
Correct.
They have built a Georgiou who is in love with the idea of the United Federation of Planets. That she considers to be a good thing, and she will clearly, no doubt, do all sorts of underhanded stuff to protect that good thing. But it's not about...
She used some very lofty language to describe it. I think she said we can be luminous or something like that.
She said that, and then the other thing was just the way that she, like her stance with Saru, I think, in that we didn't talk about during that scene, but the thing she says about use this anger to do, so it was something really productive, like use your anger to like teach others or save others, or
she said survive, like survive to revenge those who died.
Like in Tropic Thunder, survive.
Aaron says that Michelle Yeoh's really busy. Well, she could be like a director character and maybe pop in, every few episodes. I think Shazad was interested. Yeah,
I don't know. I'd want to see her there a lot. I think.
Yeah, I want to see her be the main character.
By the way, early on, I forget where this scene took place. I think it was just in the scene you were talking about, Fathery, where who was the guy who was on the shuttle? The nobody guy.
Dugan.
Father Dougal. Yeah. Just kidding.
Yes. When there was a moment there that I thought echoed, and this might have been mentioned in the comments too. There was a moment there that I thought echoed Kirk's original pitch to mirror Spock, where Georgiou is telling Tilly about the that he had to put down twice as many revolts this year as they had the previous year, and that if the people don't have something to hope for, then they're going to always be in a state of rebellion. Like it was like a pretty deep dive into the philosophy of the Prime universe, and obviously just completely over Burnham's head. Still not something she can get her head around in that from the Mirror Universe. But I did like to see that echo of Kirk's initial pitch.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about this goodbye that we get between Georgiou and Burnham. I'll just run through it real fast and then we can discuss it. But yeah, the Guardian or Carl, whatever you want to call him, he basically sets in the coordinates. We don't know where, so their options are open for where they want her to go after this. But he leaves them so that they can say their goodbyes to each other, and we get this most like heartfelt moment I guess we've ever gotten with the character, where Burnham tells her, "Yeah, like I'm going to miss you. Like you are my Philippa. Like you don't replace her, but like you are just as much of a meaningful person to me as she was. I like you for who you are." And Georgiou thanks her for everything she's done for her and says, that crew of yours ain't that bad. I actually really like y'all, and y'all made me a better person, and I'm going to go off now. And we get like a little bit of mention of those flashbacks she was having with someone named San, who was stabbed, that I've been told is in the book Die Standing that they released recently. The Georgiou is the main character of. So if you want to know that story, I guess you have to read the book. But I like that Burnham's is like, well, tell it to the people you're about to go meet. So I don't want to listen to that right now. But wherever you go, if there's a Section 31 show or wherever you end up,
a significant plot point in the Section 31 TV series, at least with her personal arc.
That salute they give to each other. Michael does the Vulcan hand jive. Georgiou does the hand on the chest, but she didn't do
the Nazi thing.
Tastefully, she did not do the I'm not going to do it now, but like the Nazi thing. And then she vanishes through the Guardian. And so what do you think about this goodbye between the two of them?
You didn't put in the Guardian snapping two of his fingers to disappear himself.
Did he do that?
Oh, sorry.
Fucked up, fathery.
Yeah.
I don't think did he snap his fingers?
It looked like it. You
It
don't have
is
a
weird
screenshot
that
to show
they,
I think he did.
it.
It
Now
is
that I
odd that they
think
spent
It
a
looks like
fair amount.
he had both hands up. Oh, he
Yeah,
snapped
he
both.
did.
Okay.
He did
Yeah.
a 2-finger snap. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, it's right
something
here.
like that.
He's got
That's
twice.
power.
Does that mean he's got twice the power of the Q, or only half the power of the Q?
So,
I
oh, go ahead.
oh, sorry, I was just I bought it. I bought the goodbye. I liked it. I loved Michelle Yeoh's performance here, and I do hope we see the character again, maybe in Strange New Worlds or in 31 series. I like this the way they wrap
Yeah, I guess they could
this
do
up.
more tryout for Section 31 through Strange New Worlds, and a lot it would
for
be
sure.
side, guest episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I do think that, like you were saying, Starfleet Boy, I bought it too, and I think that, after 2 episodes of sort of zeroing in on it, they had earned it at that point.
Yeah, I think this. I was really worried when they took Georgiou into the future with them, knowing that she was supposed to come back and have a Section 31 TV series with Tyler, that I was like this. I felt it was going to be awkward and contrived. And I thought this was actually felt very elegant and very fluid and not contrived at all. If I didn't know there was another series about her coming, I might wonder if there was, but I wouldn't feel like there was some sort of mad leveraging from the writer's room going on to get rid of the character. I
would be wondering where she went, because
Yeah.
he just says to a time when the mirror universe and prime universe were aligned. So
Yeah.
I
A lot
took that to
closer
mean
over,
like
yeah.
before it had moved so far away. Like
Yeah.
Right.
Vitch said that our universe has moved further away. Like
Oh yeah, I just assumed it had to be to the past, roughly to TOS-ish era. I was guessing.
She leaves with all this knowledge about the 32nd century and has been sent back in time. And not only has she not been told to keep that stuff secret, she and never acknowledge that information's existence, she is told to go back in time and save lives and make a difference, which is wonderful, as can finally make the difference that she was trying to make in the mirror universe in this episode and was failing to make. Now she can go do that, and it's a wonderful arc and direction for her character to go. But it does mean that, according to Guardian time travel physics, the timeline Michael beams up to at the end of this story is different than the one she beamed down from.
I think
I'm
they'll
sure the
handle it.
Guardian carefully picked a perfect path that would not distort history overall.
And that stuff's inconsistent because
I also
like,
think
it
I
also
also
like
think
doesn't it doesn't like put you like back into your body, like you're physically transported somewhere. But when she went to the Terran universe, she's like back in like that person's body. It's not like there's 2 Georgios when she arrives. So it's
Have
like,
we
think
seen-
that
Have we seen
when
the
Spock went back to little kid Spock in
he didn't. He
yesteryear.
did a little Spock. You're right. Yeah, he didn't.
I think
So
Georgiou
the
hasn't.
Guardian rules are already kind of inconsistent.
But Georgiou has an engineering background. I think she's definitely going to introduce technology and stuff like that. But I think it's going to be like in Star Trek 4, like transparent aluminum. How do we know he didn't invent the damn thing, right? Like that kind of thing. Like,
Is she going to
not
try to prevent the burn? Is she going to be like,
Right,
oh, but I
like,
looked
Trying
at
to prevent the burn. Yeah. She
she
doesn't know much about it, but she can at least warn them about the burn.
She doesn't know
I
much
would
about
be
it,
okay.
and they're gonna think she's crazy like 900 years ago.
I'd be
right?
okay
Like
if she
they're-
gets there and she's like, oh, I actually don't remember. I guess like the Guardian erased that stuff from my
Oh,
memory.
that might
Yeah,
be
I
an
was
interesting
thinking
way
he
of
could
looking at it
do-
too.
Well, in old X-Men comics would be Professor Xavier tinkers with people immorally, but for the good of all.
Well, even if she's lost her memory, the Guardian states she's going to change things.
Yeah.
So either she's in a different timeline now than Michael, or the timeline Michael beams up to is not quite exactly the timeline she left. Where those are your 2 choices at this point.
The Guardian's new kink is watching people change timelines.
Yeah, the Guardian clearly has a plan. It's like, I want you to go make the past better. It's very Sam Beckett here, and which I like. I like the Guardian is actually a little more proactive and has a bit of a vision as opposed to just kind of some sort of Alexa, which is what we seem to get the first time around. But I do find it intriguing that like Michael can go try to look up what happened to Georgiou potentially in the past. Now, admittedly, she doesn't know where or when she went, so she wouldn't necessarily think exactly back where we left from wouldn't necessarily be the obvious place to look for her. But she might be in the history books now, and she wouldn't have been in the history books before this adventure.
It might be interesting if they don't even go back to it would be really interesting if, like, let's say the new Georgiou's sent back to like the TNG era. Who knows?
Well, I was wondering about
have
that.
Another leap to get Tyler to the TNG era. I mean, not impossible. Right. Maybe Tyler freezes himself to get to the 32nd century, and Georgiou thaws him out, saying, "I need your help." You could do that, but it does start getting awfully complex.
Yeah,
he would not know to do any of that stuff, right?
Right. Yeah.
I had one kind of criticism just on a dramatic level that all those sort of scenes that we saw of Georgiou's kid, her mirror kid. It was weird too
that's not her kid. That's not her kid.
We don't know who
Stan.
Is.
Yeah, he's not her kid. I think it's supposed to be like a boyfriend or something when she was younger.
Yeah, it was
but there's
weird
some
to
important
basically
story.
leave it unresolved. I presume it's something that they would have as a notable arc or story element of the first season.
They hang a lantern on it here when Burnham's like, yeah, tell that to the people you're about to meet.
Right, but it's dramatically speaking, it's unsatisfying because we spent a lot of time watching these flashbacks. Not a lot of time, but the flashbacks were a plot point several times of showing that, and then they're like, stick around or something.
But Dave, you have a point. Like, it was such a dramatic and shocking image of this person dying.
Well, it seemed like it jarred her out of her so badly. It was like PTSD for her.
Yeah, and it didn't really have anything to do with her like atoms being displaced and like starting to lose their connection or whatever. One thing I did want to bring up before we move on from this is right before she goes through, she turns to Michael and she says, "This era is different, more Terran than where you came from. Saru has navigated Discovery admirably, but he's not the only one suited for the captain's chair. Right. You have always been far greater than you could imagine, Michael." We're getting Captain Burnham at one point. Like,
yes.
However you feel about it, like
that's I didn't like it. When that happened, I was like, "You're right. It is going to happen at some point."
Mm-hmm. I'm okay with it. I actually love Captain Saru. I was pleasantly surprised. But I was Team Captain Burnham from the beginning. So
we have a whole new Starfleet with lots of ships.
Yeah, it's true. She doesn't have to be the captain of the Discovery.
Could end up in command of another ship. I think they might want to take this talented.
Can I say something crazy? Can I say Captain of the Enterprise, 32nd century, brand new Star Trek show.
The Enterprise Z. The
Enterprise
Z.
It's a little Enterprise Z for my taste, but I feel like the Enterprise can kind of. Doesn't always have to be the centerpiece, but
I know.
I worry though that's effectively writing Saru out of the show or something.
Yeah, I think he's
bumping them down to first officer.
Do that, so I can't figure out how they. I talked a few episodes ago, like trying to figure out how they were going to keep Book on board and whether they could have like two ships working in tandem. And I think that part is going to sort of happen, but Book will be sort of like. Yeah, they'll use his ship for certain missions and stuff like that.
It's no Delta Flyer.
Yeah. I also think we're not going to get Captain Burnham for a couple seasons. If I think that might be part of the.
I think we're getting her at the end of this season or next year. Yeah.
Ooh, interesting. We'll have to see.
Interesting. It sounds like something that we should lay some money down on.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, it almost seems like they're trying to make Saru look like maybe he's actually not that great at command.
I disagree. I think he comes out really great.
There's one way I could think of that I might be okay with that ending of the season. Saru is lost, appears dead or kidnapped, and Michael takes command. And season 4 is the quest to find, the search for Saru.
The search for Saru.
Yeah,
it'd be the search for Saru. I suggested that, he could be kidnapped or injured or in some way, shape, or form incapacitated, and then who takes? Is it going to be acting first officer Tilly? But or like maybe the crew is like, no, like Michael, we actually want you. You're the one we need, or something like that. And then they all stand up and clap. They all stand up and clap for like 5 minutes, and the music swells.
They clap until she accepts the job. Just keep clapping until she takes it. Okay, I'll be.
Stress-Free K just straight up asks, why can't they have two main starships that work in tandem? And I think it's just dramatically difficult. It's, at first I was sort of thinking of it as like, well, it'd be like a buddy cop thing, but with starships. And you do have they send out, ocean-going vessels in modern times with escort ships and, that work in tandem, but usually not at length. Like, there's not partnerships in general. Although I kind of like the idea. Like, I feel like if you had a specific mission where, they were in some certain dangerous area of space, and you had one ship that was more the Guardian and one ship that was more the science ship or something, that could work. But I think it would be real tricky.
It was like Battlestar Galactica. You had a whole bunch of ships, so you can do it. But it's not something that I particularly want the show to do, or I don't really see that coming. I don't think that. There's nothing to me to indicate that they're going in that direction.
I will say that with 32nd century technology, it's easier to do than it's ever been in Star Trek, because the holo calls basically put you in the same room, and with some transwarp beaming, you can pop back and forth to the ships. So it's really just, my ship is so big that part of our story ship is so big that part of it is over there. We have disconnected nacelles and effectively a disconnected starship too, another ship. But I agree with Fathery. I don't think that's what they're going to do at all.
Let's talk about that 32nd century tech a little bit. There were some scenes back on board the ship that I just want to run through right now. But we have Stamets and Adira on the mission of trying to hack into the Kelpian ship that was in the Verubin Nebula near the source of the burn. And they're trying to get their signal to it, but I guess they're too far away. They're having to draw power away from Reno, who's doing her own type of engineering experiments, and Book comes in to solve the problem. He's like, oh, I have this courier tech, and we actually get what felt like an old school Berman era Star Trek techno babble sequence where he's like, there's not enough subspace relays, so us carriers, sometimes if we're far away, we have to use these amplifiers to increase the signal within subspace. And Stamets is like, oh, that's really cool. And Reno's like, you just can't say thank you, can you? But they tell Vance okay, we have this courier kind of quick and dirty way to hack into the Kelpian ship. And Vance is like, oh, are you sure you want to break the rules? You might compromise Discovery, and Osira might be looking into your spore drive. She's running out of dilithium, so there might be a target on you. Might be foreshadowing something. And Book is like, no, I know this stuff is safe. And then they're like, oh, well, Burnham's back. So Book's I'm going to go in the corridor and hug my girlfriend. But we get this conversation between Vance and Saru. And he talks about how oh, I know that must be hard to see those dying Kelpians from 120 years ago. And Saru's like, oh, don't worry about it, Admiral. I'm not distracted. And so what we get that stuff. And then also the stuff before that in engineering. What do y'all think about that?
Jet is amazing.
Yeah, I like that Stamets is where the hell have you been? I haven't seen you since the dawn of time. Yeah, she's contractually only going to show up in 2 or 3 episodes a season because she doesn't want to go to Toronto and shoot more episodes than that.
Stamets, that Stamets screen grab you had a second ago, Father, is really good. It's another one of those worthy of a meme. Stamets. There we go. Come on. What? I wish that Book's technobabble thing, it kind of had the weaknesses of the old Star Trek technobabble, which was it kind of just came out of nowhere and like didn't like. I know the point was that he kind of did what Saru said and kind of in his own way, and he came through, and I like that. But it did kind of seem like I invented this thing that made things good, and things are good now.
See, I actually thought, as a aficionado of Star Trek Technobabble, that was very well handled. And very intriguing. Normally subspace, all your amplification happens before you push the radio message into subspace. And the idea that you have some way of bypassing the interference between the normal space and subspace and giving it a push after it's in there. I thought that was a really intriguing bit of idea there. And given that it's 32nd century technology, I actually expect that there would be all these cool new discoveries. Yeah. It's probably something Voyager would have loved to have had to have boost their subspace radio range. But
I liked it too, and I agree with you. I thought that was like a cool way of like, how do we take like a very traditional type of Star Trek technology but make it be like so much more advanced that it's worthy of the 32nd century. And I like what they came up with. I want them to do more of this type of stuff, actually.
I don't like hand wavy to me.
No, I don't like that. I don't like that they are doing what I think is a red herring and trying to get us, the audience, not to trust Vance, because there's these weird, awkward kind of moments where I'm like, do I trust him? Do I not? And I think that sentiment was conveyed.
I don't see anything. I think audiences have just been conditioned because we've gotten so much of like, oh, Starfleet's actually the bad guy, recently in Picard and in Discovery, that like I think people are just like expecting him to like turn into a Badmiral. And I
hope he does.
And I hope they don't do that. I would be very disappointed.
I had not particularly gotten the impression for many episodes now that he was going to. I think the fact that they made that point to have that scene where he told Saru that to yes, go ahead and get your crew member back there, do what you need to for them. It was such a kind of, it would feel honestly weird at this point if they were like, yeah, that was just how he got through in his good graces so he could cut his throat. It seems like they really have kind of gone out of their way to show him doing good things.
Yeah. And just we get the weird warning from Georgiou about how these people are closer to Terrans than the era that she comes from.
Well, they just talking about like the universe in general. Like
it's Mad Max universe.
Yeah, you have like the Emerald Chain is as powerful as, or perhaps more powerful than the Federation. So yeah, it does have like that kind of like cutthroat piracy type of what she was used to.
Okay.
Yeah. There is always the inherent problem of the boss for your heroes in your adventure story. The boss either has to be mostly unavailable or kind of dim-witted or turn out to be evil, because otherwise why aren't they saving the day?
Right.
And so with Vance or Ross from Deep Space Nine, you've got this fine line where you've got to kind of figure out a way to navigate that. If you want to avoid those three pitfalls, you have to be really careful.
I think that's true. And now I appreciate Nechayev and Nagura even more now because they weren't like that.
Well, I mean, Nechayev was pretty kind of pushing on the bad, leaning bad.
Nechayev was just a jerk. She was just there to be a jerk. She was there, like you're saying, like she was there not to like solve the problems for Captain Picard or Captain Sisko, but she was there to be another obstacle for them.
Yes. Basically a diet Badmiral. So
after his initial like, I don't know if I can trust these guys thing, has he done anything but sort of help and try and do the right thing, Vance?
No, I think he's
actually been like really lenient.
Yeah. In fact, I think I said like there were times I felt like I wanted him to come down harder on him, like the police precinct captain who's tired of their tomfoolery.
Yeah, give me a Tricom badge in your phaser on my desk now.
It kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Also, when he took that jab.
I told you, whatever you do, don't start a conflict with the Emerald Chain. How did it go? They said they're going to go to war with us, sir.
That's not what happened. He avoided it because they used Book's ship for the attack.
But
don't
I
think
have a
the
question,
Emerald
like,
gives a shit about that little technicality.
what about the jab he took at Saru, calling him and Michael lax? Like, he's like, you guys are lax, even for your standards. That's lax or something like that.
Well, he said that they're like not following procedure by doing the courier attack or the
I think
Emerald
it's okay
Chain.
for him to conflict with their perspective sometimes and be a little bit antagonistic towards them, just as they're a little bit antagonistic towards him. I think that's doesn't necessarily indicate anything other than their different perspectives.
I will say,
Sassy.
well, I guess before I change the subject, did anyone else have anything to say on Vance?
I guess one more thing about Vance for me is that I do wish we got more of the tall symbiont perspective on Vance. Like Adira kind of, he kind of dismisses Adira and is like, well, tall, what was his name? Admiral
Sienna Tall. Yeah,
Sienna Tall and I were
familiar.
Sienna
Tall and I were acquaintances. You and I are not.
Yeah, and I would have liked to. I thought that was an interesting tease or an interesting setup there, and I think I would have liked a little more of that story. And we do have 4 more episodes, but I would have liked a little more sprinkle of that. I think
there's 3 more.
I will. Sorry. On the book front, with Book coming in with this technology and stuff, and then Vance saying, "Oh, dodgy technology," I realized, wow, Georgiou has only been gone a few minutes, and our new bad boy has already cemented his position as the new bad boy on the ship who does things a little non-protocol wise or not.
But he also read the field manual and the technical manual in that time.
He's clearly not
written by Michael Okuda.
But he falls right into he's already putting his stuff in her desk. It feels like by the end of the episode. Okay, now this is my desk now.
But he also must be a speed reader because I think I don't think that much time had lapsed.
It might have books in the 32nd century. Just hold them up to your head and boom, you're done. But
that's what I suggested.
Sure.
Yeah, I want to see a little bit more of that because I know that there's been regression because of the burn, but it a lot of times it doesn't feel advanced enough. Like I watched some of the Trek Yard stream today, and one thing that they pointed out is like, why are they having to like punch a hole through subspace to get their signal to this ship that's, I guess, as far away when 2 centuries earlier than this, or I guess 3 centuries earlier than this on the relativity, you could just scan through all of space and time.
Well, you can't observe something without affecting it. So given the new temporal rules in place, scanning the past could potentially on a quantum level affect the past.
Right, but it seems like it should still be easy to send like a subspace transmission across the galaxy.
Well, before the network got all blowed up, it probably was. The network.
Remind me why they haven't just spore drive to there? What's the delay?
Well, they were they're trying to save Georgiou to the nebula. I assume they're going to the Verubin Nebula soon.
If they can just go there.
Yeah, that was another thing I was wondering. Is like, why are they like so worried about like having to send this subspace transmission to hack in with the prefix code? Why don't they just spore jump over there and then spore jump back?
To some degree, don't they need? Admiral Vance is keeping them on a pretty short chain, and their logic has been: we need enough evidence to convince Vance it's worth devoting resources to.
Yeah, that's a good point. They don't have permission to go over there yet. Yep, no, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I like it.
And I think now by the end of this episode, they probably do, or at least they're pulling all this data out of the Kelpian ship. They probably will have enough evidence for the admiral to sign off on it and say, "Oh, okay, well, there's clearly something to this. Go check it out."
Not only that, but I think next week will be when we find out what exactly was the burn, and we'll get those answers next week.
I avoided watching the teaser as always. So
I haven't watched a single trailer all season.
But I don't know it.
No,
I will say that it doesn't give much, so I think we're all in for a nice surprise.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well,
it
they
is.
kept the lid on the Mirror Universe this season. They didn't have
Yeah,
Jonathan
they did
Frakes
a really
blab
great
it
job
at a
doing
convention.
that.
And they kept the lid on the Guardian.
Yeah, they
And the
just
Guardian,
didn't have
that was
him
like-
direct those episodes. Problem solved.
You know, we
That's hilarious.
guessed the possibility. You know, Father, you were talking about the Guardian last episode, but it was still a very fulfilling thing. It didn't feel like I wasn't like, oh, yep, ho hum, it's the Guardian. I was like, oh, it's the Guardian, yeah. It was still very exciting.
Mhm.
Well, let's talk about this ending of the episode. We have Burnham comes back on the ship. I like that they took the time to show like Book goes to like greeters, like, oh yeah, like someone like really close to you just died, so I'm gonna like support you and comfort you. And we have a conversation between Burnham and Saru where she says, yeah, Georgiou's not coming back, and he says, oh, so she's deceased, and Burnham's like, well, she's not coming back, so Georgiou is gone, and I guess like in the books it'll be recorded that she died, which is probably a good idea since time travel is kind of like super illegal now, it sounds like.
Well, yeah, and it also protects the Guardian who told her that he's not,
right. Yeah, he doesn't
like,
he doesn't want to be outed.
found.
So like
Right,
yeah, they're doing him a solid, I guess. And we get this kind of this what do you want to call it, a memorial service, an Irish wake.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like
but
Irish wake.
they're having drinks. They're having a toast to this a murderous asshole they used to live and work with. But yeah, they all say something nice, like Dr. Colbert is like, oh yeah, like she was a stubborn patient, and I wish I could have done more for her. And Tilly's like, yeah, she was a badass, and Detmer's like, she looks so cool with that coat and those boots, and Owo is like, oh yeah, nothing intimidated her, and Reno's like, she had no tact. I loved that about her. And Saru is like, she was brutally honest, and her barbs were so glorious. And Burnham's like, she was a pain in the ass. And they all like laugh at that. They all get a big chuckle. And Burnham says like some words about, you know, I loved her and hated her at the same time, but I guess I needed her. She's the most unexpected of gifts. She herself was like a mirror that I didn't know I needed. And they all have a sister. They all have a drink to Philippa. And what do y'all think of this? Did you buy it? Did you buy the emotional reaction to someone who's just dead in their eyes? Like,
I thought it was interesting because it felt real. Like, it did feel to me like the realest thing about, you know, like I think they wouldn't all just say nice things. There would be a joke or a humorous type of tone to saying goodbye to someone like that.
Arguably, you know? They were still being a little too nice, and that their jabs were all kind of friendly jabs. I would think that not everybody would be quite so Tilly about it, which is to say, like, oh, I recognize that although she was a bitch, she was our bitch, and that she helped us to be tougher or whatever. That some people would be like, oh no, she was horrible and toxic. You know,
I think that's out of respect to Burnham, and that's why everyone laughed when she said she was a pain in the ass. It was like breaking that tension. You know, like,
I actually
they are all saying nice things about Georgiou because they feel bad for Michael.
Yeah,
I would not have minded if
they're letting her know that they understand that this is bad for her. I don't think they actually, I don't think they see her as a good person. I mean, they may be sad she died just on a general kind of death is always bad and no one should die kind of level. But I think most of these people are just doing this because they care about Michael and they want to support Michael in what is obviously a very difficult time for her. And she even realizes that, and she's the one who throws down, oh, she was a big pain in the ass.
Right.
You know, to kind of let everyone know that they don't have to be quite so stiff and formal and, about the whole thing to her. That's how I took it.
I don't think that was the intent. I think that it was trying to be sincere. So it did feel a little forced to me. I would still take this over like everyone in engineering telling Tilly like just say yes, we want you to be the first officer, and they're all like crying there, and Michael and Tilly are crying at each other, and Jeff Russo's score is going crazy, and then they all clap and hug. Like, I would still prefer this over that, but yeah, it is still a little forced. Alexandra in the live chat says the ending felt off to me. I love Georgiou, but I didn't get the impression the Discovery crew did. And
yeah, well, that's why.
I think that if they had shown a little bit of like, you know, just maybe 30 seconds of extra footage of like some people who were like, a crewman who was like, I'm not really sure what we're doing here, and then somebody was like, hey, respect George, or no, I mean, respect Burnham or whatever. It's like there was, yeah, she was a bitch, but there was something that she was doing for her, or
I wanted to see Linus. I wanted to see Linus crying. I wanted him to be like, oh no, I was in love with her.
Oh, yeah, that would have been amazing. Oh, why did they not do that? Wow.
I think they wanted.
I don't like the ending either because it's got no Linus. Thanks, you ruined it for me.
Linus would have been great.
He's gonna. He like had flowers. He was ready for a date night.
But I thought about it. She, as evil as she was back when she was in the mirror universe, like as the whole time that she spent with our heroes and all the stuff in the Prime universe, she was never actually like that bad to I mean, she was still like a mean person who would throw like her food on you, but she like never like betrayed anyone or killed anyone or anything like that. She all she did was like help them and like insult them the entire time.
I mean, I think that's mostly true, but like if you asked Saru when Burnham and her went off on their unsanctioned mission, that he would probably say that was not a cool thing.
Yeah,
I think there was some other stuff like that, maybe.
The reason I think the crew wouldn't necessarily, I mean, she treats everyone like shit, and she's pretty good at it too. So you can't really just laugh it off as, oh, well, that's just silly. No, that actually hurt. But I can also fully believe that the people in that room care enough about Michael that whatever crazy reason whatever Michael saw in her, we'll be here for Michael because that's what she needs, and she's been there. Michael has been there for us, so we will be there for her today. I have no trouble with that interpretation, even if they don't explicitly say that. But I did have another.
I think that works as a kind of behind the scenes version of it.
Headcanon.
Yeah, but I do often wish that Discovery was a little bit more upfront about things like that. That we can surmise these things, but I actually I feel like. I would rather they go ahead and show them most of the time.
I did have a question. Does Saru know that that Georgiou is still alive and that something else happened down there, or does he think she's dead?
I think that he knows some. He took the hint. He took the hint from Burnham.
Right. I get it.
When he asked her, like, did she die? And Burnham's like, she's not coming back. And he's like, oh, okay, so she's dead then. And then they kind of like hold each other's hands, like I understand you, And
however, Booker thinks she's dead.
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to see a conversation between Michael and Book.
Yeah. If they're as close as they seem to be, she's going to tell him.
Yeah, that was my question. I felt like what we see on the screen is she basically just lets him believe, and he's like hugging her, and you can kind of see in her face that she's not as torn up about this as Booker thinks she should be. But Booker's not looking at her because they're hugging, and I thought that was really nice. As the camera pans around, you see that she's not as quite as broken as Booker's like, oh, you must need a hug. I'm so sorry. I know she's dead, and I was like, well, that's a really well acted and sweet, interesting moment. But is she not going to tell him? Because I don't know if they should have.
I didn't read that. I didn't read that as like she's like keeping a secret or anything like that. But
well, no. If they open the next episode saying, "Well, I hope," with Booker saying, "Well, I hope she enjoys her new life," I'm fine with that. But it does feel like
great.
The version we've got, the evidence so far points to she doesn't tell Booker. So.
It'd be great to hear the official log entry, right? Like to see what Burnham actually logs.
Well, I don't think she logs this. They keep it off. They keep it off the record.
But like Vance is surely going to be like, well, what happened? Did you bury her on the planet? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's going to be
her atoms were falling apart. So like,
she just
there wouldn't be a body.
Yeah. Right. That makes sense. That's a good point.
And I don't think Vance cares that much. If Discovery's crew is satisfied that the situation has been resolved, I think Vance will say the situation is resolved.
He cared enough to offer his condolences to Saru, which was so weird. The first time I watched this, I thought he was talking about the dead Kelpians. I didn't even put it together that he was talking about Georgiou.
Wow. By the way, Dead Kelpians is a great name for a ska band.
Yeah.
I can dig it. Let's go ahead then. Well, is there any final thoughts on the episode before we do the Gorn eggs?
Going through the recap, I think I appreciated it even more going through this discussion and recap, because I did like it, but I really liked. I do think it's a solid two-parter. Even with the critiques, I think it's a really good story that a nice departure from the main story as well.
I suppose the one comment I would have that it was just a minor thing, but when they're down on the planet, the weather is snowing, and it's clearly, I don't think they wanted it to be snowing, but it is snowing. And whenever they have Georgiou standing in front of the green screen, which I guess they shot on location so the lighting would match, you can see the snow in front of her, but not in front of the spinny vortex behind her. And so it's no snow, and then you see the snow streak across her body, and then it disappears on the other side as soon as it moves over the green screen. So I thought that was
it's
cute.
just really hot near that time vortex, and the snow melts.
Well, then how did it get to her? Because it had to pass through the green screen to get in front of her in the first place.
Timey-wimey snow.
Yeah, wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey, greeny weenie. Green
In the Ready Room, Michelle Yeoh says that when they first arrived on that set or that area, that the whole thing was all like black rock and stuff like that, and then it started to snow and just instantly became this blizzard. And then, like, also they're like the clothes that they had for that scene were not remotely warm enough, I guess, for the.
Yeah, they needed field jackets. I want to see field jackets in Discovery.
They were wearing jackets, though. Yeah. They were wearing jackets on the Danis 5.
Oh, yeah, I thought they did have jackets.
Sorry. Well, they needed more like Starfleet-looking field jackets. Then I don't know.
Michael's was the standard field gear.
Wasn't she just wearing her armor? I'm just thinking like Kirk's, pop the collar up, that kind of deal.
I'm sure they would have appreciated that. Though Georgiou's jacket looks actually pretty hardy. I mean,
do you have a picture? I want to see it again now. It's crazy.
I'm going through my Gorn eggs.
Okay, but never mind. Sorry.
I want some Starfleet long coats. I want to see some variety, not just a jacket.
Book is going to design the fashion then.
The Starfleet great coat. We got to get a great coat.
Is it Book or Booker? Now I'm.
It's Booker. But
his last name is Booker, but he says call me Book. My real name is Cleveland Booker.
Okay, so I'm not going crazy. Thanks.
Yeah,
see, it's just
they're clearly wearing jackets.
I guess. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
They even have gloves on. Keep their little hands warm.
Well, the gloves might have been a quick improv if it turned out to be colder than they thought. But
that's true.
I guess did they have them?
There was one comment that I wanted to mention before going into the Gorn eggs from Diggs Briarthorn. He says, Georgiou didn't really change all that much. She was always upset that she killed Mirror Universe Burnham, and she had motherly love for Prime Burnham, just as Lorca had romantic love for her. I did want to bring that up just because that was one thing she said in her final goodbye to Michael, was that, from like the time that you met me, like this version of me, I was broken because I had to have you killed in my universe. And, like my time with you and your crew is what kind of like did it for me. And I guess even when she was like a genocidal ruler of this fascistic state, there was always like a little shred of goodness in her that I guess would not have been common in the Mirror Universe. And that's why we can infer that's why like Lorca and Burnham were conspiring against her. Like they smelled that goodness in her, and they dismissed it as weakness.
She's not quick to kill in the previous 4-parter in season 1 either. Actually, there's some of that sentiment.
She killed a lot of her own men when Burnham said she was from the Prime Universe, and she killed all those lords.
She did do that. That's true.
Who was the control guy? She was real into killing him too.
Wayland. Yum.
I mean, there was something about it like where she didn't kill, like she kept the prisoner. There were prisoners. Lorca's uprising. She kept them.
Yeah, she was torturing all those people and killing them.
Torturing all those people.
Well, that's because she was trying to find Lorca. She was trying to
I guess that's
figure out where he was, which I guess matches what we saw here. But
mother loves her kid is pretty much the lowest bar possible for goodness.
For human decency, yeah.
For human decency, there's not really any lower you can go once you lose that one.
That's the Cersei Lannister. That's the Cersei Lannister.
Yeah. So
the last saving grace, you're saying.
She did change quite a bit because she clearly would have worked hard to keep a lot of other people alive by the end of her arc that she wouldn't have.
And ultimately, Saru was the deciding factor here, right? That was the one that was what made all the difference to the Guardian, anyways. Even though everything else, she felt like she failed, and he points out that you actually didn't fail because of what you did for Saru. So that was I think that was the moment.
And I think we are supposed to take that as a largely selfless act that she had nothing to gain by saving Saru. That's why that's the key.
Yeah, it's like she did it by accident. She was just like being nice on accident.
Yeah.
Which agreed, it is a low bar. That is a very low fucking bar. And I'm not saying like you should forgive every like horrible dictator because they were nice one time, but I'm just saying thematically that was to show that she did change, and she can now there is a role for her to serve within the Star Trek universe or multiverse or franchise or whatever that will be explored someday, streaming on Paramount Plus. Let's talk about these Gorn eggs. These are all of the in-jokes, continuity connections, and Easter eggs that I found within the episode. If I missed any, let me know. Starting off right at the beginning, Burnham mentions the coalition that is forming against the Terran Empire. And she says that it is Romulans, Andorians, Tellarites, Klingons, Denobulans, Rigelians, Corridanites, all uniting against Georgiou. So most of these species we'd seen previously in Discovery and previously in this season, but the two I wanted to bring up was Denobulans. I might be wrong, but I think this might be the first time the Denobulans have ever been mentioned in anything canonical since Enterprise went off the air in 2005, believe it or not. Like, was there any Denobulans in Lower Decks?
I want to say I remember them being referenced someplace after Enterprise, but I can't for the life of me remember if it was like a throwaway thing in a JJ film or what. But I want to say I remember them being referenced. But
I can't think of anything, so I want to bring that up. And also, this is the first time, I'm almost positive, they've ever mentioned anything about Mirror Universe Romulans, which is something I've always been curious about. I just assumed that this Terran Empire, when they had their Earth Romulan war, there were no more Romulans left after that, and that's why we never hear about them. But I guess they're still around, but if they're part of this coalition. But yeah, this is the first time they ever mentioned Mirror Universe Romulans. The other thing was the monitor that Burnham is being spied on by Georgiou. It has like the same button layout as Mirror Universe Kirk's Tadalus field that he used to assassinate Pike and take over the Enterprise and all of that stuff. It's like the exact same buttons. It has that little teardrop thing that actually activates the Tadalus field, and then like there's 6 little buttons under it. Tilly does really say cool. Like you could kill her with the press of a button. So is this supposed to be like a Tadalus field? That was supposed to be like one of a kind, but yeah, it could just be like a little like visual Easter egg, but it might be a Tadalus field for all we know. I like it.
Especially with the line reinforcing me, I think the obvious interpretation is yes, the Emperor had one too. So
I need to get one of those.
Nice catch.
I should have got one on Black Friday.
As we talked about earlier, we do see a ring over Ryza, but my theory on it is that that was just those 2 moons got blown up.
I assume
Ryza.
There are actual shots from orbit of Ryza that clearly show no ring.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we see it in where this image is from Star Trek Enterprise. 2 days and 2 nights in season 1, episode 24 or 25.
Well, I mean, just because you can't see a ring on the horizon doesn't mean there's not a ring. You just might be on the wrong part.
No, there's actually a shot from space of the NX-01. God damn it, Brian! Don't make me go to Trek Core and pull up that screenshot. Just take my word for it.
That's a great. That's a great new.
I was just asking if it existed. That's all.
That's a great new song for Brent Spiner to sing. "Rings Over Ryza."
Rings over Ryza. The Guardian, of course, is from originally City on the Edge of Forever, and we see it again in the animated series. Reno on the Discovery is talking about the work that she has been doing, and that's why we haven't seen her, because she has been busy trying to get some fully polaric warp conduits and replace the plasmic warp conduits. Polaric energy was previously mentioned in Star Trek Voyager in the season 1 episode Time and Again.
That's right.
Yeah, it was like an experiment on this planet that ended up like blowing up and creating like another timeline because of some subspace fractures. But there was a polaric energy test ban enacted in 2268 after some Romulans blew up on their research station. But yeah, Reno's time, the 23rd century, that must have been something that people were striving for, was the polaric energy. But yeah, those were all of the Gornag.
All the conspiracy theorists will now say that we're actually in that timeline. It's not the prime timeline. It's the polaric energy timeline. It's like...
If you want to be a Star Trek freak conspiracy theorist, yeah, always possibilities to bury your head in the sand.
But yeah, so that's pretty much everything for this week's episode, and we'll be back next week on actually on Christmas Day. I might just be me streaming by myself, but I'll still be here in rain or shine at 7:30 p.m. Central Friday to talk about season 3, episode 11. Okay, so there will be at least 2 of us. There will be at least 2 of us.
No promise yet, but COVID has cleared my schedule wonderfully.
Yeah, I was going to say, kind of the same for me. I don't exactly have a lot of great options.
Well, I think that might be the case for some of our live audience also, or at least the people who
join us. That'll be fun.
Or at least the people who check us out later on audio, or watch the YouTube later or something. Give you something to do that weekend. So yeah, that's going to be happening. And also later tonight, I'm not going to be able to make it, but Starfleet Boy is going to be on Starfleet Boy After Dark. And you have a special guest. I heard you have like a surprise guest coming on.
What?
I do?
Yeah.
Nice cover.
I think Mirror Universe Fathery is actually going to show up.
Okay, that's all right. That's awesome. By the way, you two have seen it. You gotta come for our man.
Yeah. What are you talking about?
I dropped in last week, and I got I feel like a drunken hero's welcome. It was great.
A hero's welcome, son. Is that what you want? This time we paid for the party with our dearest wine.
Oh, nice.
Yes. So we are definitely talking about a little more Star Trek, but definitely a lot of Mandalorian. There's a lot of Mandalorian stuff and Star Wars stuff in general to talk about. I'll run the title by you guys real quick. Everything and the McClunky. Or everything and the kitchen McClunky. I don't know, something like that. But no,
that's a McClunky title.
That is a McClunky title. Well, we'll see what the final title is. But yeah, we'll see you guys around.
Title goes here. That should be.
That's awesome. Rescue the title. So we'll be on at 11 as usual, around 11ish. So I hope everyone who tuned in here will come and join us and talk about that.
Cool. And just because we're plugging stuff, and he happened to mention it in the chat. Aaron mentions his show is streaming the day after Christmas because they stream on Saturdays. Infinite Treks. You can catch that on Twitch at Outpost 13.
Can I give one more shout out that we're both in, Fathery?
Go for it.
The Jesse Gender holiday special.
Oh yeah, that came out today, and Aaron's in that too.
Yeah, it's true, and so is Aaron. So go check that out. It was very cool. Aside from our cameos, the whole thing was very entertaining and very cool.
Oh, and Aaron says that they'll have Noah, who plays Ren, the Andorian, showing up.
Oh, fantastic!
So yeah, I'll be tuning in for that.
Noah Katz or something like Averbach
Just
Katz.
change his name to
Averbach-
Wiseman. You should just take Mary Wiseman's last name.
Mr.
No,
Wiseman.
I mean, a lot of actors
Averbach
do
Katz.
change their last names to make it like, easier to remember and say and stuff. But
They are the
it is what
darlings
it
of
is.
Star Trek right now. I really love them. I also think, of course, Rebecca Romaine and Jerry O'Connell are also darlings. But those two
Don't
are
forget
really
about
special.
Terry Farrell and Adam Nimoy.
Yes, that's
Yep.
true. Very good point. Very good point. So a lot of nice Star Trek couples out there.
So that'll do it. I just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And as always, until next time, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. And follow Fathery on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.